So I love to say that, you can't miss a meeting. My sobriety community has 4 to 6 Zooms per day, including special events like dance parties and trivia nights. And you just never know when you might miss a gem. You've got to make sobriety your number one priority. So on that note, there was one time in a call, someone put in the chat, thank God I attended, it's the only time I ever saw it, but this great quote from an unknown AA member, and it says, "I drank for happiness and became unhappy. I drank for joy and became miserable. For sociability and became argumentative. For sophistication and became obnoxious. For friendship and made enemies. For sleep and woke up tired. For strength and felt weak. For relaxation and got the shakes. For courage and became afraid. For confidence and became doubtful. I drank to make conversation easier and slurred my speech. And I drank to feel heavenly and ended up feeling like hell." I love that. And that quote really got through to me. I used to think quotes were fleeting. What was the point? But sobriety quotes really stick with me. I've got to list all my favorites someday, perhaps in my book. Stay tuned. What I love to say, the promises of alcohol are all lies. The promises of sobriety are all true. And that's why no one ever regretted getting sober. It's crazy. So this quote, just to break it down quickly, I drank for joy and became miserable. I mean, this is a progressive disorder. And we get to the point that drinking only works for 20 minutes. It gives us that quick little high. But from there, we're stuck in buzz limbo till we essentially become miserable and just want to go home and sleep. I drank for sociability, became argumentative. It's so true. I used to think drinking made me a hermit. We all think it's a social drug, but no. For those of us with alcoholism, all it wants to do, as someone said, is isolate and kill us. I drank for sleep and woke up tired. It's so true. We don't dream when we drink because we do not achieve the REM stage. So yeah, it might help you get to sleep initially, but it is not quality sleep. You've got to get sober, stay patient. I love to take melatonin, gets me right to sleep every time. I drank for courage and became afraid. I love that. I have so much sober confidence, which leads to the other part of it. I drank for confidence and became doubtful. I have so much more courage in sobriety. It's funny, I used to drink, then go to bars, gonna talk to everyone in the room, and guess what? All I would do is end up talking to my same circle of friends and then go home, pull the Irish exit, and go home alone. Now in sobriety, I want to talk to everyone. I feel fearless, and I'm loving it. I drank for strength and became weak. I used to drink at my pizza shop so I could be like Superman, but instead, it was just like wearing a 10,000-pound backpack that just got heavier throughout the night. And all I wanted to do was get home and go to bed and take it off. Drinking will make you weaker to deal with your problems. I got the point, I couldn't even call to make a doctor's appointment, to call a prospective date, or to even renegotiate my cable bill without drinking. And, the one about I drank for sophistication, well, it's funny watching now. I enjoy watching people drink, and they just become less interesting as the night goes on. I have a sober friend that says, we become the most sober people, the most intelligent in the room. Well, I also say we become the most interesting in the room, especially if you talk about your sobriety. Tell people you got a voice that compels you to drink, and that'll make for a pretty interesting conversation. And of course, the final one, I drank to feel heavenly and end up feeling like hell. Couldn't be more true. Alcohol is poison. From the moment it enters our body, we're just trying to detoxify, get it out of our system. And that's what causes hangovers, and that's why we feel like hell the next day. Addiction sends your emotional danger sensing circuits into overdrive. It raises your cortisol levels, and that's why you feel stressed when you wake up the next day. That's why you get the hangxiety, best term ever, and that's why at that point, you just want to use drugs or alcohol to stop from feeling bad. And rather than to feel those pleasurable effects, You're just trying not to feel bad anymore. And that's why you get stuck in this vicious cycle. It's like, well, who would ever take an anxiety pill that it said works for 20 minutes, but then just makes your anxiety worse indefinitely until you take another one. And then the same thing happens all over again. 20 minutes, and then boom, you're right back in buzz limbo. Just don't do it. So just remember, the promises of alcohol are all lies. Promises of sobriety are all true. And I'll end with a great quote from my favorite sobriety author, Laura McCowan. This thing is a black hole. It swallows everything in your life up until all goodness and light have disappeared completely. And the only question is, will you accept it now or later? So that'll do it. You've got to stay sober. You've got to stay patient. And remember, as always, please like, share, subscribe. Stronger, sober. Thanks.